Rambo. All hustle. Yeah.
Today we got a few new topics and of course some new music. It's been a little bit slow on the album front. Definitely been tons of things to talk about. I just prefer not to really dive into a lot of the gossipy stuff. On Instagram, things have been kind of evolving a little bit more into more social commentary and stuff like that. But personally, I don't really like talking about other people's business like that. When it goes into the music, which is what I do enjoy about hip hop in the general sense, like there is a lot of opportunity to see real life manifest itself into lyrical content. But sometimes when it becomes so like gossipy and just about outside of the sport and the skill and the music itself, it becomes too much of like a clickbait kind of thing where I just rather just take a break, take this time to kind of regenerate some other things. I'm working on these podcast episodes. And then obviously we clip these out to bring it to you guys short form and then go from there. How we're going to operate from a week to week basis on the Facebook page as well as on the podcast, and how to get the community conversation getting a little bit more amped up on that side. We're almost to 500 followers, which is amazing considering we just started really going strong about 3 months ago with about 160, and now we're almost to 500. So I appreciate everyone that's hit the subscribe button, and definitely reach out with any questions or recommendations or new music or anything. At the end of the day, that is what we're here to do, and that's to grow the community till we can have a nice ecosystem of good quality music, debate, discussions, and truly generate a place where we can actually be educated and fruitfully championing the music the way it should be. Now, today we got a few other things that we got to talk about, but we're going to start off with Domani.
They hate to see the front of deeply rooted, why the blood is bluish, keep on speaking fluent, front of soul, easily influenced. I see every nuance, I feel every corner in the room. I channel energy, a mix of Hennessy. I turned a bittersweet into a porn. I turned the memories.
Domani was on a freestyle cypher type presentation with T.I., his pops, as well as Killer Mike, representing Atlanta strong. And you know, it really got me thinking how amazing it's been to see the rise of Domani. You know, I think specifically not just for somebody who's under a label, right? Like where T.I. had Grand Hustle, and him putting on other artists is a challenge, right? That's just a hard thing especially for a label ran by an artist that already has its own brand, his own look. But you know, T.I. was actually, I would say, one of the most successful CEOs. If you look at B.O.B.'s success, if you look at you know, even if you frown at it, but Iggy's success was commercially, honestly, pretty impressive. These are all fruits of T.I.'s CEO mind, of him seeing talent and wanting to push that forward. You know, but with this is not really so much about talent, but it is about family. And I think the way that everything rolled into that 50 Cent beef, highlighting each of his son's skill sets on the music side, and specifically Domani, and being able to craft just both his voice, his delivery, his pronunciation, like everything he does, everything I've heard from him is probably some of the best and pure essence of hip hop quality lyricism and artistry that I've heard from any new talent in the new generation. The fact that Domani wasn't on the XXL freshman list to me was a huge blunder, because at some point you really have to start looking at where the talent's at. And that's, you know, as I mentioned in the last episode, I think that's one of the biggest fails that XXL is doing, is they're really allowing the industry to drive what they platform. And sometimes what they're platforming isn't necessarily the best or the best representation of. And you could say, well, you got to change with the times, but it's like, no, when you are a media outlet, you are supposed to be the change that comes with the times. And I think that's the biggest difference. But you know, with that being said, salute to T.I. and salute to Domani. He smoked this freestyle right here. And like I said before, I think it's only up for Domani from here on out. I think his career is is largely going to continue to upscale. And we're going to see some amazing and great things from Domani. Now, speaking of influence, I found this freestyle from Lil Twist.
Run a lateral, run a play off a perk with an attitude, I had to do it. Pistol to his mouth, now it's not a tooth, I'd rather you. Then pull out from the scene, that's without a roost inside the school. Pockets overflowing, can barely move it.
Lil Twist always had talent. I think he was too far down the line on the Young Money roster to really ever get a real good look. I don't think he ever released an album or anything like that. But this freestyle is crazy, and it got me thinking of how crazy it is. Like, this is a really good freestyle, and his delivery's on point. It got me thinking of the influence of Lil Wayne. Imagine being Lil Twist and traveling and being on tour and doing all these things with Lil Wayne as basically who you're looking up to and who you're following in the footsteps of. So it doesn't surprise me that he's got this in his bag. I just wonder, like, how people skip the concept of the influence that Jordan had over his players by them being able to practice and play with Jordan on a day in and day out basis. And so to try to act like Pippen was just this all-star, five-star, all-American kind of player, that's just not the case. Pippen became Pippen, as well as everyone else on that team. Ron Harper, B.J. Armstrong, Bill Cartwright, you name it. Luke Longley, are you kidding me? So, to talk about this topic as if playing with greats doesn't make you a greater player, as if playing with incredibly intense and competitive player doesn't make you an eternally better player. I would even argue that some of Rodman's best years were thought to be behind him in Detroit. And when he got to the Bulls as a, fill-in player or a super team player, he definitely took it to the next level and proved that he had plenty left in his tank. So, for me, it's all about who you play with. And again, the biggest knock for me about Jordan and LeBron is the fact that LeBron is always running to another team. He's always going over there, or I'll go wherever I'm needed because whatever I need to do to make it happen. Why won't franchises just believe that they have the best player of all time, get behind him, get him the players he needs, and make it happen? Or maybe they have, and then it just hasn't happened as much as that should lead to. And I think that's where the knock will always be, is the fact that, one, okay, let's just say you didn't have the tools. Why? Why didn't your franchise believe in you enough to go get you the tools? Why is it always that and not this, And I think that's our biggest knock with LeBron and this whole situation. But I'm super excited to watch him in Philadelphia. I think it's going to be a great couple last seasons for LeBron if this is where he ends and retires his jersey from. And personally, I think it's a great storyline. I think Philadelphia is an amazing American city, and it's kind of always been in rivalry with New York, and I think that may be we're in the direction that we're headed. But only time will tell. The NBA season is going to be here before you know it, and we're definitely excited to see what LeBron does with this new opportunity in Philly. A$AP Rocky has been doing the most. That's without even talking about the concert. His concerts look crazy. It's going down at A$AP Rocky's concerts. And to be honest with you, but I enjoyed his album the way I've always enjoyed his albums, and that's accepting that he's just going to make something different. But it's great to see this kind of following for an album that I was told underperformed. I was told A$AP Rocky didn't have any fans. Well, he sure as hell has one fan. Now, speaking of old flames, Cardi B got a brand new deal on the way with Old Navy, which is incredible because going from booster to spokesperson for Old Navy is one hell of a come up. Now, speaking of coming up, we got a brand new record, surprise record from Wale called Overthink. Personally, this is Wale at his best. It's got that R&B vibe, but it's not overworked. It's very laid back. It's definitely perfect for the fall season coming up, and this should be on your R&B playlist if you have an R&B playlist for sure. But a good little vibe, Overthink by Wale, released now, and definitely hit play on this. If you like his sound and you know what he does, this could definitely be one of those records for Wale, who honestly, Wale has a great track record for hit singles, records that, whatever his formula is, which I can kind of give you an idea of what that formula is, it works almost every time. And I would even argue that Wale has more hit records than he gets credit for. But, I won't even dive into all that. But with that being said, Overthink, available now by Wale, surprise record, middle of the week. You got to love it. Don't play by the rules. Play by your rules. Release when you want. Because at the end of the day, the people that support you and are going to be there to push your music forward and further are going to do it regardless of what day it is. Now, in other news, LAREEZY is going on tour with Chance the Rapper, celebrating Coloring Book's 10-year anniversary. I can't even think of a better match to be on tour besides these two. They have, honestly, they have kind of the same energy, the same presence. LAREEZY almost reminds me of a young Chance the Rapper. And for me, it's just great to see some of these artists, or more specifically, the artists that, not because we said it, but because the content says it, but the artists that are really taking the time to craft important music about important things and write deeper songs than what the system tells you that you should be writing. And I think LAREEZY is great for doing this. And I'm super excited to see where his music goes in the future. And definitely, if I'm able to catch him on the road, would be great to link up with him as well, as to me, he's at the brink of his greatness, and whatever his trajectory is going to be for his career, he's right at the precipice of finding out how big this thing can really be. Now, speaking of comeback seasons, LaRussell is back with a brand new record called Move Me. Honestly, this may be the catchiest and more universally appealing record I've heard from him ever. And it seems that somewhere along the lines of what happened with Heaven Sent, maybe he rebranded, or maybe this is a new direction. This reminds me of, early Kanye when he first got his rock chain and was just starting to kind of tiptoe out into the world as a rapper. This is like exactly the kind of vibe he was on. I could definitely see LaRussell rebranding and going full dive into this very Mr. Rogers kind of character as far as like his raps and his lyrics, and just being overly positive. Think like somebody like Kyle without
move me, use me, whatever you need from.
Just think of somebody like Kyle, you know what I mean? So with that being said, Rambo Hustle with the Hip Hop Report. Make sure you check out Chris Bands and his brand new record, New York Minute, buzzing right now in New York City. That just got radio play this week, as well as all these other records coming out in the next couple weeks. I think it's going to be an exciting end of the summer as we gear up for fall and see what new albums really strike gold and actually hit a streak for these artists to make a claim for potential album of the year. As of right now, as far as album of the year, I'm going to say T.I. And for those of you guys who are hating because there was no Drake on the Song of the Summer playlist, I asked you guys for recommendations or requests. Nobody gave me anything. That is not my fault. You guys comment on everything we post that mentions Drake, but for somehow, whenever I needed a request for the playlist, you guys didn't give me nothing. That's not on me. That's on you. So, you're welcome to still send me some requests of what you would like. Don't make it no lame shit. And Rambo Hustle with the Hip Hop Report.
Subscribe to the channel. If you want the latest and greatest, do it for the game. Music, breaks, these are the breaks. Music, breaks, these are the breaks. Music, breaks, these are the breaks.